And welcome back to Well, That's Interesting, the Hey Everyone, Look What We Found Down Here edition. Today is episode 278. Man's lung tumor turned out to be a toy swallowed 40 years ago. And let's talk about the deepest living land animal. My friends, what a day we're about to have. If you're a longtime listener of the show, or if you're a new awkward-looking molting business goose, that's okay. Because I have no doubt that just by tuning into a handful of recent episodes, you already know there are some themes we love returning to again and again. Two of those just so happen to be objects embedded somewhere in the human body, and other surprises found in holes. And today, in the first half of the show, we are back on Old Medical Oddities Lane, and we are still focusing on our life-giving air sacs. Just last month, during episode 276, we were left gasping at the ingenious technological feat performed by the thoracic medical team over at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. There, in the spring of 2023, a Missouri resident was flown to their department in a condition that could be considered one of the worst a patient has presented to an emergency room on this show. His case all started with the flu, and it spiraled into a lung infection so apparent and disastrous, the team knew that if they kept his diseased lungs inside his body, it would spread, and organ failure would be imminent. In sum, those lungs needed to go. Now, I'm not going to give anything else away here if you haven't had a listen, but let's just say they had to figure out how to keep all of his organs alive with no lungs for 48 hours as they waited for a donor to perform a transplant. And the case we're about to cover? Well, it's not as frantic and bubbling over with adrenaline, but rather it is a slow burn that will still leave you with your hands on your hips saying, how in the holy hell is that possible? We will travel back to 2012 at the Royal Preston Hospital in the UK, where a 46-year-old man was complaining of having a chronic cough for the past 16 years. You heard me, a continuous cough for 16 years. Over the span of that time, and paired with that annoyance, he also came down with multiple health issues, like pneumonia and bronchiectasis, which is a fancy, difficult way of saying his airwaves or bronchi were nice and thick with inflammation and infection. It wasn't until he walked through the doors of the Royal Preston did tests reveal a small mass in his lower right lung. As a former chain smoker himself, our patient thought the worst. We will meet the medical team who took this patient under their wing. We will squint at a CT scan that revealed some kind of mass or fluid was lurking. We will look over the shoulder of doctors who performed a bronchoscopy to get to it. And we will learn what the hell a bronchoscopy is exactly, and we will learn what they fished out of him. And yes, the title of the show says it all, but you may be wondering how an incident that took place in his childhood could only be serious now, in his 40s. Well, yes, childhood can certainly have a number of repercussions, but this is a fun one. Then after the break, how do you feel about venturing into the world's deepest known cave and poking around for a good 10 years? Okay, I could see most of your faces, and judging by the expression of it, you're not thrilled. And I get it. But I have good news. For real. In beautiful synchronicity, at the same time staff at the Royal Preston were digging around in our patient's lungs, the Ibero-Russian CaveX team was literally thousands of feet within the bowels of a country on the shores of the Black Sea. We will meet the team that peered over the side of a hole 7,000 feet deep and said, God, I can't wait to get in there. We will meet this hole. We will wrap our heads around the difficulties and challenges one faces when descending such depths. Challenges that make space travel look like a goddamn walk in the park. We will also try to wrap our heads around how life could even exist down here, because yes, they found not one, but 4 animals who call this place home. And one of them lives in some of the deepest regions. We will meet them. I'm currently writing the notes to this episode in mid-March, so by the time you hear this, who knows what the surface world is like. So if another one of your reactions is there room for us down there too? I had the same thought. Maybe if we ask nicely, we can work something out. In the meantime, hi, I'm Jill Chacha, and if this is your first time listening, Welcome to the flock, my anxiety-ridden business goose. To begin, I'm going to need you to take a moment and close your eyes to reach back, far back, into the junk drawer of memories you've ignored for years. Once you find it, please take a deep breath and poke around for a childhood toy or maybe a playset that sparked your imagination, bringing a joy that you would forever chase. I'm fine. Are you fine? Good. Now, hold on tight to that memory, and now grab a passport, because you and I are squeezing into the time machine and dialing it way the fuck back to the year no one remembers, 2012. For real. I had such a difficult time picturing this year, I had to give what songs were popular in 2012 a search, and wouldn't you know it, this was so many lifetimes ago that Gangnam Style was inescapable on the airwaves. Yeah. Well, imagine this playing as we land our time machine 200 miles or so northwest of London and inside of the city of Preston, whose official website, by the way, is visitpreston.com. And at the time of me writing these notes in March of 2026, it is promoting a musical extravaganza of its own. And I am sorry to say that by the time you hear this episode, you barely missed a shindig called Family Fest 26, which took place on May 3rd. This shindig, I shit you not, included cover bands like Harry Styled and Bjorn Again, the Australian ABBA homage. I know, I am angry too. But I am not sorry for that slight tangent at all for a number of reasons. In fact, family fun is actually going to be the theme for this half of the show. You'll see what I mean in a minute. Anyway, back to Preston 2012. As we find ourselves within walking distance to the emergency room of the Royal Preston Hospital. Inside, a 46-year-old man named Paul Baxter is filling out a number of forms, and one of them is asking for a brief medical history. Well, our soon-to-be patient noted he gets quite a bit of exercise as a postal employee, but is an ex-smoker who at the height of his habit consumed about a pack a day for 30 years. Which, if I do some clickety-clack calculations, that means he's been smoking since his teens. Couple this with what he's been experiencing for the past 16 years, yes, the past 16 years, it's no surprise he's finally consulting Dr. Mohammed Manavar, a pulmonary specialist so admired he'll be promoted to the president of the British Thoracic Society in 2020, a year we will never forget. And Dr. Nicholas Denny, who at the time of this case was getting medical training at Wythenshawe Hospital in Manchester, England. Let's begin with what good old Paul here was experiencing just this past year, which was a chronic cough followed by bouts of spitting up yellow mucus. Now, that sounds bad, but I have good news. That's not as bad as what took place back in 2004. According to the team's case report, revealingly titled Right Lower Lobectomy Following Inhalation of a Toy Traffic Cone, he developed an epiema, which sounds like a fun way to eat, but isn't. Thanks to an undiagnosed case of pneumonia, his infection accumulated and overflowed from his lungs out into the pleural space, or space between the lungs and the chest wall, just underneath the ribcage. Now, if you're like, oh, wow, Jill, you know I'm a business goose, like a real business goose, so I'd like to see an illustrated example of this. Great, I've got you. If you drop whatever body part you're holding right now and pick up your phone to tap on today's post over at the socials, you'll see a non-graphic artist interpretation of this condition, which just so happens to require a thoracotomy to drain the pus. Now, if you're like, wow, Jill, I am not that kind of business goose, so please only tell me about this procedure and do not show me. Great. I've got you here too. A thoracotomy is a surgical incision into the chest wall to access, in this case, the lungs. But you can also swing by the heart or the esophagus if needed for any other diagnosis, treatment, or to say hi. Our patient received this treatment, and to believe his day-to-day life improved was up for debate. The report goes on to note that since his surgery in 2004, he required, quote, infrequent oral antibiotics for exacerbations of bronchiectasis on a background of repeated episodes of right basal pneumonia, end quote. Well, that is just a fancy way of saying, damn, girl, You're going to have to keep taking these pills because the airwaves making up your right lung or the bronchi, they're all fucked up. And they're enlarged, thanks to them being filled with this pus again. This is what's causing the cough and where this yellow mucus is coming from. So here, shut up and take these pills. And check out today's post on the socials where you can see an illustrated example of it. My friends, for nearly a decade, he lived with bronchiectasis and took medication in a feeble attempt to fight it off. But he was losing this battle, and that is what brought him here today, before the medical staff at the Royal Preston Hospital who felt they needed to find the root cause of this chronic symptom. To do so, they hitched up their pants and said, you know what? It's been a minute since you had a new CT scan, and it's improved since 2004. Let's have a look-see at your lungs. Yeah, that's a good idea. So, let's, shall we? If you still have your eyes on today's post rather than on a child or the road, good for you. Please swipe past that illustration of the infected bronchi and you'll see the actual CT scans from this medical case. There are 2 points of view, and in image A, you'll see the lungs from straight on. And in image B, you'll see like an aerial view. Please focus on the patient's lower right lung, which would be to our lower left. I'll give you a second. Okay, I can see your reaction from here. I believe your face says, oh my God, that solid triangle, I see it. It's a tiny traffic cone. Now, that's correct. That is correct. But you only thought that thanks to the title of today's show. At the time, thanks to Paul's history as a 30-year pack-a-day smoker and the frequent diagnoses of pneumonia and bronchiectasis, the team erred on the severe side of caution, labeling this unknown mass bronchogenic carcinoma, or a malignant large cell tumor. To further investigate, they decided to get up and personal with this possible carcinoma with yet another procedure, a bronchoscopy. According to the National Cancer Institute, this is minimally invasive and often is performed by a pulmonologist, like Dr. Mohammed Munawar, who, through the nose or mouth, inserts a thin, flexible tube with a light at the end to illuminate what in the holy hell is going on in your airbag parts. Patients are typically sedated and given local anesthetic to numb the throat or the nose as the tube worms its way through. And luckily, the whole process takes 10 to 30 minutes, with most patients recovering quickly within a few hours and experiencing maybe a sore throat afterwards. So, after getting intimate with a bronchoscope, what did the medical team find? Drumroll, please. Thank you in the back. And don't you say tiny traffic cone just yet. Not yet. Be patient. When approaching the object, signs were actually looking rather dire, as the doctors confirmed extensive shadowing and a thickening lump in the lower right lung that looked to be the source of Paul's bacterial infection, as it was, quote, discharging pus, end quote, from the case study. Well, whatever it was, they had to get to it fast. In an interview with Victoria Larned of CNN, Dr. Munawar explained his concern, quote, we acted quickly because the bacterial infection could spread to other regions outside of the lungs, end quote. And if this sounds familiar, you are absolutely right. We learned this happened to Paul back in 2004 with an undiagnosed case of pneumonia. His epyema was thankfully caught in time. But if you had to listen to episode 276 a month ago, then you know what could happen as the clock ticks away. Dr. Munawar and Dr. Nicholas Denny decided to stick with the same procedure that treated him back then, a thoracotomy, to gain access to this mysterious lump. So, after getting intimate with a surgical incision into the chest wall and making their way into the lower right lobe, what did the medical team find? Drumroll, please. Thank you in the back. Yes, now you can say a tiny traffic cone. Quote, during a diagnostic procedure, doctors in the United Kingdom who have documented the case in the British medical journal BMJ Case Reports discovered a mustard-colored foreign body in the lung. Paul Baxter, who was identified in local news reports, said Thursday morning on the BBC Breakfast that the doctors, quote, managed to pull it up. And it came up, and we were watching it on the screen, and nobody could tell what it was. End quote. Continuing from the article, it was not a tumor. It was, in fact, a tiny toy traffic cone from a Playmobil set that Baxter had apparently aspirated or inhaled more than 4 decades earlier. Quote, "Everybody just fell out laughing," Baxter told BBC News. He continued telling the BBC, "I don't remember eating them, but obviously I had it in my mouth, and like the doctor said, I inhaled it, because normally if you swallow, it goes down the other pipe and passes through you normally. But no, this had been inhaled and going into my lungs." End quote. From the fantastically named Lindsay Beaver's fantastic article in the Denver Post. Thank you, Lindsay. My organic business goose. Upon being reunited with this half-inch plastic toy, Paul's mind immediately threw open the junk drawer of memories, and it came to him. On his 7th birthday, his family gathered round for the celebratory ritual of opening gifts. One of them was a set that included teeny plastic figurines dressed as construction workers and the accoutrements they come with, like traffic signs, and yes, cones. Being 7, at some point, one of them found their way into his mouth, whereupon he did something very 7, and maybe ran through the house, inhaling it. What I mean to say is that I don't have the exact details of when it was inhaled, but I have great news. Playmobil is still around, and they still make teeny figurines with accoutrements. So, if you have a young person in your life and their birthday is coming up, head on over to playmobil.com and check out the categories City Life and City Action for an assortment of playsets, including, you guessed it, a construction site with a flatbed truck and shipping container. There's firefighters who look like they're geared up for the worst. And I shit you not, there's like a replica MRI that in real life could also find masses in the body. It is just fantastic, and it's amazing. And I bet you have a few thoughts, like, wow, great, thanks, it's almost impossible to choose. And wait a minute, how did he survive this as a kid? And how is it only now, as an adult, he's exhibited symptoms? Those are great questions. Let's start with our glorious throats, who after millions of years evolved to form the epiglottis, or a life-saving flap of cartilage at the base of the tongue. It's this piece that flips down to cover the windpipe or trachea during swallowing. At the same damn time, the larynx rises and vocal cords close to direct food safely into the esophagus. This coordinated reflex stops breathing momentarily, and you live to eat and breathe another day. This subconscious symphony works most of the time, but even nature can't predict the stupidity of a 7-year-old boy, and accidents happen. If young Paul had accidentally swallowed the cone rather than inhaled it, he would have eventually pooped it out. In this case, we know that didn't happen, so what did happen exactly? In an interview with Carrie Nierenberg of Live Science, Dr. Denny said it's almost certain that young Paul would have had symptoms as a child, such as coughing or chest pain, after he inhaled the toy, but these symptoms might have been blamed on a short-term illness. And because the toy traffic cone is hollow with holes on either end, it may have allowed for airflow in the passageways of the lungs rather than interfering with it. Yeah, you heard me. The cone had not one but 2 life-saving holes. Not only was this key, but the incident occurred when Paul was still growing. At such a young age, his airways were able to remodel, working their way around the cone. So, what happened as he got older? Why was he continually getting sick? Well, in that same interview, Dr. D explained it best. Quote, "Smoking may have suppressed his immune function in the airways, making it more difficult to clear away secretions, such as mucus, and making him more vulnerable to infections. These secretions might have been cleared from a normal airway, but in this man's case, the combination of being a long-term smoker, along with the partial obstruction from the lodged toy, prevented each secretion from being cleared. This buildup of secretions ultimately led to the man developing these health conditions." End quote. Speaking of which, I am thrilled to report 4 months after the removal of this cone, Paul's 16-year cough had come to an end. But his record still stands. In the UK, 40 years is one of the longest time periods for an object to be found after being aspirated. Well, you know what? Enjoy it while you can, Paul, because Playmobil is having a sale. After the break, we are leaving the modern conveniences of the UK for the remote wilderness of the eastern coast of the Black Sea, and tiny plastic cones for even tinier living creatures. But don't worry, we're sticking with the theme of surprises in unexpected places. In the abyss of the world's deepest known cave system, a new species of hexapod has been uncovered, and researchers are calling it the deepest land animal ever found so far. What the hell is a hexapod, and why in God's name are we descending a cave again? It'll be worth it. Stay tuned.
When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
This episode is brought to you by Beneful. Mornings are when the grind starts. Stretches, immaculate. Cardio, crushed it. Territory, marked. Sorry, geraniums. The dog routine is on point, but it can get a little wolf. That's why I fuel up with high-protein Beneful freshly prepared meals. I'm eating clean with real meat and veggies, served fresh from the pantry. Kick boring in the bowl with Beneful freshly prepared meals. Visit Purina.com/Beneful to shop now.
And we're back. We are so back, and my friends, feel free to drop all your childhood memories and to pick up more rope and energy bars than you think is reasonable. Because you and I are looking over the shoulder of Sofia Riboleira, a cave biologist at the University of Aveiro in Portugal, who is currently looking into the mouth of a cave that would send chills down the spine of any seasoned spelunker. For Sofia, however, this is just another day. The year is currently 2010, and for the past decade, she and the Ibero-Russian CaveX team have spent nearly every waking minute meticulously planning and executing the exploration of Crubera Varonja, located in Abkhazia. And for my fellow geographically challenged Americans who are like, what even are those words? Don't worry. I've got you. Please, if you will, imagine a flat oval. Come on, don't be shy, a flat oval. Okay, perfect, great. Please label that oval the Black Sea. And now point to the very top. Wonderful. There is Ukraine. And if we move our finger clockwise along the sea's coast, we'll hit a section of Russia. Then, an autonomous republic the UN considers an integral part of the country Georgia, but is under Russian occupation, Abkhazia. Below this is Georgia. And coming around the corner is Turkey. And fun fact, below Turkey is the Middle East. So clearly, this section of the world is doing just fine. And that, of course, is sarcasm. And now that you know where we are in Abkhazia, you can kind of understand the perspective of the creatures we're about to stumble into. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start with some actual fun facts. In the long list of the world's deepest caves, out of the top 45, Abkhazia is home to 9 of them. Yeah, 9. That's 20% of the list. And it gets better. 4 of those 9 are in the top 10. And guess what? Those 4 take first, second, third, and fourth place. Which one do you think we're at today? Yes, you're absolutely right. We are standing at the mouth of our first place winner, Crubera Varonja, who, as this team has found out, reaches a depth of 7,188 feet. And because the universe is funny that way, Crubera Varonja isn't at sea level. Oh, no. The only way to reach the mouth of this cave is to first climb a goddamn mountain that is itself 7,300 feet up. And if you think that's the hardest part of this team's exhibition, I'm going to need you to brace yourself. In an interview with Charles Q. Choi of Live Science, a very tired Sophia said thusly, quote, "Everything needs to be carried to the mountains, and then through all the cave, including more than 1.24 miles or 2 kilometers of rope and 800 cave anchors. There are no machines, only human work. At the base camp, we have no fresh water, only melted snow. and the food has to be rationed to feed almost 30 persons during 30 days. Searching for cave-dwelling animals is a task that requires several hours of active search, extremely difficult in the cold conditions of the cave because of the risk of hypothermia, as temperatures inside the cave range from 32.9 to 41 degrees Fahrenheit, or 0.5 to 5 degrees Celsius, end quote. So, let's recap. After climbing a mountain and rationing food, the team needs to work as one functioning organism itself, seamlessly bringing in over a mile's worth of gear in a vertical direction in pitch-black winter conditions. And what are they looking for? Cave-dwelling animals who most likely lack body pigmentation, have no eyes, and have been developing morphophysiological strategies for survival at such depths, so basically tiny, nearly invisible aliens. To us non-spelunking cave lovers, this is incomprehensible behavior. But for Sophia and the gang, searching the bowels of Crubera Varonja is a lifelong dream. And that 10 years of investment is about to pay off in goddamn spades. Please, join me now, will you? 2 years later, in 2012, now looking over the shoulder of Rafael Jordana and Enrique Bacchiaro from the University of Navarra, Spain. They are currently analyzing the specimens the CaveX team plucked from this record-breaking cave, and once again, I'm going to need you to sit the fuck down and brace yourself. They found not one, but 4 completely new species of springtails. And they are changing our views as to what kind of life can exist deep underground on Earth. Now, what in the world is that, and what the hell do I mean? I am so glad you asked. Even though they really look like insects and bear a similar resemblance to termites, these babies are actually more like the cousins of insects. While they are hexapods, meaning they have 6 legs, they are classified in their own class, Columbola, due to having internal mouth parts rather than external ones, like mandibles. And with those internal mouth parts, they feed on fungi, algae, bacteria, and decaying plant matter, so they play a crucial role in breaking down organic material. In fact, they are so good at being nature's cleanup crew, lovable nerds use them in terrariums to prevent mold and clean up waste. Now, that's all cute and whatever, but here is the crazy part. Or rather, here's the avalanche of crazy parts. Despite being 0.2 of an inch long on average, springtail fossils exist, and they date back 400 million years, making them one of the oldest known terrestrial arthropods. Today, they are found worldwide, living everywhere from the tops of glaciers, internally producing antifreeze to survive, and now in the deepest caves of our world. Put a pin in this, we're going to get back to exact numbers in a minute. But speaking of other numbers, they are amongst the most abundant macroscopic animals, with estimates of 100,000 individuals per square meter of soil. Yeah, so as soon as you step outside, girl, you and I are outnumbered. We are surrounded, and I had no idea. Those stats are mind-boggling for sure, but there's more. There's a reason their nickname is springtail. Tucked away under their abdomen is a forked appendage, aptly called a furcula. When threatened or maybe in a hurry, this body part is let loose, pushing against the ground with such a fury it propels them sometimes 100 times their body length, up 8 inches into the air. Again, this isn't a jump, it's the potential stored energy of this furcula being released, shooting springtails into an insane backflip. But not just one backflip. Globular springtails, or rather springtails that are more on the rounder side, they can flip in the air at a rate of 368 times per second. So the list of colossal things springtails are capable of is a long one. And now, thanks to Sophia and the gang's lust for deep holes, that list just got a whole lot longer. My friends, this is going to be very difficult to pronounce, but I'm going to try my goddamn best. I need to introduce you to Anurita stereoodorata, Deuterophorura cuberanensis, and Schafferia profundissima. Nailed it. These are 3 of the 4 brand new springtails found at various depths in the world's deepest cave. They all lack eyes and are mostly colorless. But Anurita stereoodorata, like the name suggests, has evolved with a spectacular adaptation. These guys have a built-in chemoreceptor, which is a fancy-pants organ that's responsive to chemical stimuli, which is helpful when eyesight isn't a possibility. Now, that makes sense, but it's our fourth little one that's leaving biologists scratching their heads. What's called Plutomyrus ortobalagenensis was found deeper than any of these at 6,500 feet below the cave's entrance. Yeah. And although it has exaggerated long antennae, it still maintains some color. Its grayish body is covered in darker black spots. As to why, well, Enrique Bacchiaro, one of the taxonomists taking a look at these specimens, has a theory. It's possible. Despite Plutomyrus being down the farthest, it might be the newest member of this cave. So, good news, everyone. There may still be room for us after all. Thank you for listening, rating, subscribing, telling your friends about that guy who nearly died from swallowing a childhood toy. You know what? Look, he's okay now. Maybe talk about your favorite childhood toys and memories, and that might lead to something really sad, so maybe not. Talk about the deepest living animal instead, and how maybe you guys could split an apartment together down there. Yeah. And a hidden thanks to the folks over at Airwave Media, the podcast network, to which WTI belongs. If you love this show, and you do, you love the other podcasts in this family, and please, stay interesting.